So today we're going to work on solving systems of inequalities by graphing. So it's the same thing as solving systems by graphing that we did in the last lesson last week, but this time we're going to be using inequalities. So remember, an inequality is either one of these four symbols. So a system of inequalities, just like a system of equations or a system of equalities, okay, equality is equation. So an inequality is two or more inequalities with infinite solutions. So here's a chart, and why don't you, if you're watching this as a video notes, why don't you pause the video and copy this down? This is how you read it. So if you have this sign, for example, you're going to shade above and you're going to use a solid line to graph. Okay. If you're given this symbol, you're going to use a dashed line, which looks like this, and you're going to shade below. So just to remind you, this is greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, greater than, less than. All right. So if we're just going to do two examples for these notes. So if I look at the first one, we have equation 1 and equation 2. Equation 2, I can actually graph right now because it's already in y equals mx plus b. So I know there's no equal sign, but even if I said y is greater than, just think of it, it still has to be the y on one side of that inequality, your slope next to the x, and then your b here. So it still has to be in that same form. So equation 2, we don't have to do anything to, but equation 1, I'm going to rewrite over here, and I'm going to solve for y. So in order to get that y alone, I'm going to move the 2x to the other side of that inequality by subtracting 2x. So y is less than or equal to negative 2x plus 5. And now my equation 1 that we had at the beginning, this top equation, the y is by itself. So if we write y equals mx plus b, or I'll just keep this sign here just so I don't confuse anyone, but it's still going to be the same thing. Oops, I didn't mean to rewrite all that. Y is less than or equal to mx plus b. So this is going to be your b, or your y-intercept. This is your slope. So my b is 5. My m is negative 2. Remember to make it a fraction if it's not already a fraction. So put a 1 under it. And then we can graph this one. So I'm going to go up 5 on my y-axis here. So everything's the same so far. This tells me to go down 2, and then the positive 1 tells me to go right 1. So we're going to rise negative 2, run 1. Go down 2, right 1. Make a point. Down 2, right 1. I'm going to go across the graph, down 2, right 1 the whole time. And then we have to figure out, okay, before we graph the line, we have to go back to our sign. So do you see how we just graphed this one, right? So our sign is this, that inequality sign. That sign says less than or equal to. So I'm going to find this less than or equal to in my chart at the beginning here, which is here. So this tells me, if I look here, that tells me I'm going to shade below and I'm going to use a solid line. So I'm going to shade below and I'm going to use a solid line. So we look this direction to see if it's solid or dashed, and we look above to see if we shade above or below. So this tells us shade below and solid line. So I'm just going to draw a regular line, a solid line that goes through these points, just like that. And then it says to shade below. So this is what that means. If I look at this line, this red line right here, shading below would mean we're going down on the y-axis. So we're getting smaller. So if I started shading this way, do you see how I'm getting smaller on my y-axis? So instead of, like, if I always start at the top, and if I'm drawing a line to the bottom, do you see how it's going negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, and then negative 7, and so on? This means we're going to shade in this direction because this is below this red line. This direction is below this red line. If we shaded in this direction, it'd be above the red line. Okay? Because it's getting bigger in that direction. So shade below means shade that way. And then we're going to graph this second equation here. So I'll do it in purple. And it's in mx plus b. So my B here is -2, and my M is 1/3. So I start at -2 on my y-axis, which is right here, and then I'm going to go up 1 to the right 3 and make a point. Now, you see how it intersects this line? I'm going to go up 1 to the right 3. Again, and I'm also going to go down 1 to the left 3. Down 1 to the left 3. Now, don't draw the line yet. It's tempting because we're used to just drawing the line. Usually, this would be our answer. If it was an equal sign, this would be our answer because those are where the two lines cross. But we're not finding where they intersect this time because we have an inequality. So we're going to take a look back at our table, and we're going to look for this sign because that's the graph we just graphed. So that's a greater than sign, which is right here. So that tells me to shade above and use a dashed line. Shade above, dashed line. So I'm going to use a dashed line here. And I'm going to shade above. So above for this one means we're shading in this direction. We're shading up because we're shading above just that purple line. Do you see where the red and the purple intersect? That's our answer. Here's the red lines. Here's the purple lines. They intersect here. So we're going to shade this entire area. We're going to shade this entire area because this is our answer here. This entire area. What that means is any answer that you choose inside this blue area is a solution or an answer to your inequality. So for example, if I picked, let's see, -3, 1. Do you see how this purple dot I just drew? That is inside that blue region. If I plugged in -3, 1 to both of these inequalities, they would be true. So that's what that means. That any answer that we choose in this region, in this area, in this blue section, is going to work for both equations or both inequalities. Okay, so we have this one now. See, equation 1 is already set up for us. And you can write y equals mx plus b if that's easier to just kind of understand. You don't have to use the same inequality. It works the same way. So I know for my first equation, b is 4. And m is -2/3. For my second equation, I have to get y alone. So I have to divide by 3 to everything. So notice we do the same process for the first ones. So this one's going to be -2x/3. And this is going to be -9/3. We've done that many times. Y is greater than or equal to -2/3 x, and then -9 divided by 3 is -3. So this is our second equation here. And we're going to say b is -3, and m is -2/3. So I'll start with this red equation that I just did right down here, and I'm going to graph -3 on my y-axis, so right here. Now -2/3 tells me to go down 2, right 3. So down 2, right 3, make a point. I can't keep going down 2, right 3 because it goes off the graph, so instead I'll go up 2, left 3, make a point. Up 2, left 3, make a point. Now don't graph it yet. We always want to check our sign. So our sign here is greater than or equal to. So I'm going to look at my chart and I see that greater than or equal to is here. So that tells me to shade above and to draw a solid line. So draw a solid line and then we're going to shade above. Now definitely make sure you shade right after you draw that line. Don't graph the next line until you shade. We say shade above, which means we're going above this line. We're going in this direction. All those red lines I just drew are above that line. Because if you draw the next line and then you do shading for each one, it's going to be really confusing. So make sure you shade before you draw the next line, not after. Okay, so we just finished that, and now we're going to go on to this line right here. And I saw that my b is 4 and m is 2/3, so that means I'm going to go up 4. And again, this tells me to go down 2, right 3. So down 2, right 3, make a point. Down 2, right 3. This time you can go up 2 and left 3. Don't draw the line yet. Let's check our sign. So our sign here is a less than sign. So let's look for that in our chart. Less than is right there. So we're going to shade below and we're going to draw a dashed line. Shade below and dashed line. Now you see how, well actually let's just keep going here. And then shade below means we're going to be shading this direction because all of this is below that purple line. Now wherever the red and the purple intersect, wherever the red and the purple touch is our answer. So I see red and purple in this region, this area right here, so I'm going to shade this region extra dark. And that shows anything that you choose in this blue space that I'm highlighting right now, anything you choose here is an answer to both of those inequalities. So both of these, this one and this one, if you plug in any point in this area, any of these points that I'm just drawing random points here. If you plug in anything there, it's going to work for both equations, or both inequalities. One other thing I want to point out is, remember when we had two parallel lines on the last notes, remember how they don't intersect? So the answer would be no solution. But when we're shading, when we have inequalities and we're shading, it does have a solution if the two lines meet in the middle like this. So we had shading that actually met in the middle. So that whole region is our answer here in this case.